Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking. Before I start this video, I of course want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it on Patreon through Super Thanks or PayPal. I salute you, my friends. Now, there are not a lot of updates and I will keep this video as short as I can. First of all, let's touch on the map changes. Not much of them appeared as of right now. The only change that appeared is right here, near the post office and Olympic School. Throughout last 24 hours, Russians were able to capture this much territory. With the post office included. There's a version that I think is possible why Russian conquest had been slowed down and why for the last few days they've been only capturing so little. So basically, if you remember all the ordeal with Prigozhin and Shoigu, the thing is, although the ammunition and shells were promised to him, there is needed some time for all those orders to come through bureaucratic hell that is Russian military. So only few days after this whole thing being resolved, Prigozhin has said that first ammunition and shells had started arriving to be used at his disposal. So perhaps when the entire logistical line would become more established, we will see much more Russian successes here within Bakhmut. While we are still here in the north, we should also talk that fighting, of course, is happening here along the street Medvedeva towards Olympic School, and Russians are trying to fight here to establish control over Larisy Shepitko Street here. Fighting here within this sector is fierce. Also, there are fierce fighting reported here around Khromove and, of course, 00506 highway. Situation in the center is difficult, but most interesting, as it would seem Russians are bombarding this sector heavily, and after that they try to storm it. But as of right now, there are no reports of a Ukrainian defense being breached somewhere within this sector. Here fighting obviously is happening here around Samolyot district in between Chaykovskого and Korsunskova Street. There's also one thing I want to talk about. This is a church that is being used as a bank, which to me is quite ridiculous. I don't know how, but this church was on fire and it would seem was destroyed by Ukrainians. And here is the end result of that fire. Perhaps there were some troops within this church, but as far as I know, Russians are very pious and they wouldn't try and use this church as a defensive point. But then again, we don't know for sure. I also have a video for you of a so-called road of death. It is neither this one or this one right here somewhere. Not sure, unfortunately, the video doesn't specify which one. The road in the video seems to be paved, so it's probably this one or this one. So as you can see, the road is littered by destroyed Western vehicles. Now I think this is a good time to elaborate on what I have said perhaps 2 videos ago when I said that even after Bakhmut the fight will continue because Russian army and Ukrainian army is still intact. And some of the people in my comment section were not happy with me saying that Ukrainian army is intact. To that, I must say that some of the military bloggers and people that are way smarter than me, like Ritter or McGregor, had said that Ukraine had 3 armies. First army was, well, their first original army that was destroyed fairly quickly. Then it was the second army that was armed with all the ammunition and vehicles that ended up in the hands of, for example, Poland or Slovenia or Czech Republic. It was still Soviet built, but it was perhaps slightly modernized by those Western NATO countries. And there is a third army that awaits Russians. It is a army trained and armed to a NATO standard. That's why Ukrainians are so hopeful in their counteroffensive, because that's where those newly trained brigades will be used. So all this counteroffensive ordeal will be a make it or break it for Russians and Ukrainians. The fate of this final battle will probably decide the fate of, I'm sure, entire Ukraine. So Ukrainian army, although and despite having massive losses, is still intact. They are at this point scraping the barrel. Yes, there are videos of a regular Ukrainian people being pulled out of schools and off the streets to join the glorious Ukrainian army. This is an indication that they are lacking human resources, but then again, they still have a lot of newly created brigades. That means Ukrainians are still have spark in them and will fight. Anyway, to the last bit of news. First of all, the news are coming from Kherson. It is being reported by some sources that Russians were able to gain control over these islands here along the Dnieper River. This could indicate that this ordeal of Ukrainian so-called counteroffensive here in Kherson is done. If you remember, about a week ago, Ukrainians had launched successful landing here in this area, were able to capture the Dachi areas here and advance along E97 highway, but it would seem it is now over. Again, I don't really see a clear indication that if Ukrainian counteroffensive will happen, it will happen in Kherson. Most likely it will happen in Zaporozhye or around Bakhmut. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you don't agree with my assessment of Ukrainian army, please go ahead and tell me that in the comment section. If you want to support the work I do, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on my video, as again, it would help algorithms to show this video to more and more people. Join my Patreon, visit my Rumble account that I've recently created, where I use my other alter ego. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.